Hello everyone. As a natural with waist-length hair, I often get asked the question,
"Are you mixed?"
I cringe literally every single time, mainly because the texture of my hair speaks to West African ancestry and nothing else. It's a bit sad that in this day and age, people still think that in order for a black person to grow long hair, they must be mixed with something else. But I have to be real with you all, I used to believe those same lies. When I was younger, my hair never seemed to grow beyond my shoulders, and I just thought that that was the way things were. Now, having grown my tresses to unimaginable lengths, it's rather bizarre to have people inquiring after my ancestry all of a sudden. As a descendant of enslaved Africans brought to the Americas, I was genuinely curious about my heritage, so I decided to put an end to the questions and just find out. Stop! Before I present my results to you, I would really like it if you could put your estimates down below. So what are your predictions? Do you expect me to be 95% African and 5% Indian or European, or 50% African or 20% African? What are your predictions? Do you have any more specifics? Can you pinpoint some countries? I'm really genuinely curious as to what you predict. So please everyone, no cheating. You are not to look at the results until after you've posted your predictions. ftDNA is a useful website for those looking to construct family trees. They can also provide insight into your ancestry based on single nucleotide polymorphisms, or SNPs, which are just point mutations indicative of particular ethnic groups. Anyway, here are my results. Apparently, I'm 89% African. Wow! Now, let's acknowledge that it's unusual for Black Caribbean or Black American people to be 100% African based on our history. Considering that this is a sizable amount of African DNA I've got here, let's take a closer look. I'm 83% West African, 4% East Central African, and 2% South Central African. I was expecting only West African DNA, so this is quite a surprise. As you can see, these estimates are broad in that there's no breakdown as to which groups make up the bulk of my ancestry. I'm apparently 8% European, 7% of which stems from the British Isles and 1% from Southern Europe, so that could be Greece, Italy, Spain or Portugal. And I'm also 2% Central Asian, and that encapsulates the area around Afghanistan and Pakistan. Being the inquisitive soul that I am, I wasn't satisfied with these results, as they were far too broad and general for my liking. Thankfully, there are other online platforms to which you can upload your entire genome for further analysis. To date, I've made use of 3 such platforms, namely gedmatch, DNA.land and promethease. Fortunately, they all accept the ftDNA format, which means that there's no need for additional samples, and they're all free apart from promethease, and that one's only $5. I'll show you a few other results that I obtained, which I believe to be reliable based on their similarity to my ftDNA results. Let's start with DNA.land. DNA.land gave me a thorough breakdown of the regions in Africa to which my SNPs can be traced. The proportions here are slightly different, with them assigning a value of 87% to my African ancestry. Within that, I'm 76% West African, with the largest contribution coming from the Lower Niger Valley, corresponding to the Yoruba and Asan in Nigeria. I'm also 26% Mende, a group hailing from mainly Sierra Leone with smaller populations in Liberia and Guinea. Lastly, a minor portion of my DNA, 1.5%, originated in the Senegal River Valley, pertaining to the Mandinka in Senegal and Gambians in Western Gambia. 9% of my DNA was also traced back to East Africa, with the Bantu, Kikuyu, Luha, Maasai, Luau from Kenya, and Datog in Tanzania being likely ancestors. And to cancel out all those tall East African genes, I'm 1.7% Aka or Pygmy. As regards my other heritage, I got a slightly different breakdown of genealogy, with significantly smaller contributions from the British Isles and slightly higher Central Asian proportions. These two are accompanied by specific human groups. For example, within the 3.4% assigned to Central Asia, My 2.3% Indo-Iranian ancestry includes 3 Pakistani groups, the Balochi, Brahui, and Makrani. The other 1.1% is ascribed to the Kalash people, also from Pakistan. And there's more regarding Mediterranean islander, North Central European, ambiguous West Eurasian, and Southwestern European ancestry. There's also an additional 1% of my genome described as ambiguous, which I believe to be my Martian heritage from way back. I also used promethease to find out about some health-related traits. Apparently I have 3 alleles, which are gene variations, concurrent with lactose intolerance, 2 European and 1 West African. I'm also supposedly expected to have a slightly higher IQ than average based on some of my genes. There are some really awful things here, like risks of developing certain cancers, Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, but most things look okay. Remember that DNA isn't always indicative of characteristics because there's a whole host of processes between DNA and proteins and metabolites. For example, just because they say I should have strong muscles doesn't mean I actually will. As you can see, the ability to download your genome opens up a world of analytical opportunities. What are your thoughts on my results? Personally, after having seen this, I mean, I knew this from before, but I would never consider myself mixed. I think being 87 or 89% African is definitely being African or being black, especially as far as the Caribbean and North America are concerned. What do you think about that? And I would definitely recommend doing some sort of genealogy test to anyone, especially people of African Caribbean or African American descent who just want to know where their ancestors came from or might have been taken from. I certainly plan on one day making a trip to Kenya, Tanzania, Nigeria and Sierra Leone just to find out a little bit more about my heritage. But before I do that, I'm going to do a bit of reading up and I want to get more acquainted with the continent of Africa. So if you have any sources, resources, could you post them below, because I really do want a bit of support and help on this journey to retrace my heritage and my roots and find out where everyone came from.